Today on the Better the Pond Pondcast, I'm joined by Bob Lund, Corporate Health and Safety Manager at Main Road Group. Main Road Group operates across British Columbia and Alberta with 19 subsidiaries spanning road maintenance, electrical contracting, and civil construction. And Bob sits right at the intersection of safety, culture, and leadership. Bob's career path wasn't a straight line. From mills and oil fields to electrical work, estimating, and ultimately safety leadership, his journey gives him a grounded world perspective on what it takes to build strong teams and send people home safe every single day. Now, in this conversation, we talk about what makes Main Road Group special. It's an employee ownership, a family-like culture, and leaders who really, truly listen. We also dive deep into a shared passion, youth in the trades. Bob believes that the trades offer meaningful, well-paying, and highly specialized career paths, and that hands-on learning, mentorship, and even failure are critical parts of the journey. We also explore the future, AI, adaptability, and why technology will support the trades, not replace the human side of the work. If you care about leadership, safety, and the next generation of skilled tradespeople, this episode is for you. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions. And get ready to take a deep dive on the Better the Pond Pondcast with my special guest, Bob Lund. Well, all the way from Vancouver Island, Canada, I have had the incredible opportunity and privilege to talk to my good friend, Bob Lund, the Corporate Health and Safety Manager of Main Road Group. Bob, I know this is your second podcast, and I know you're a pro, and I am absolutely ecstatic to have this conversation with you today. Welcome to the Better the Pond podcast.
Thank you very much. Privileged to be here for sure. And a pro is definitely a stretch. And like we said, we'll discuss money after the show.
Oh yeah. No, the monetary the compensation will be well, it'll be discussed, and let's see what I can do with corporate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So Bob, we prior to recording here, we had a conversation. I said we can kind of take the approach that I've done in my previous podcasts, or we can get to something that we're both really, really passionate about and talk about youth and trades, because I know that you have a background in trades. You're a red seal electrician. So when I brought up this subject, your eyes got really big. You got super excited. And I went, that's what we need to talk about today. So for the first time ever, what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to some of the format of the previous podcasts, and we're going to weave in part of the new stuff we're talking about with the youth and trades, because both of you and I are really passionate, and we get to do this. So this, by the way, Bob, is a first for both of us. So this is going to be
Awesome.
spectacular.
Awesome.
So
Breaking the seal today. Breaking the seal.
Egg, we're
Yeah.
breaking the seal. So I just want to throw out just like a couple things from previous podcasts that I've done. And we're going to give a shout out to Dave Spearbrecker, who is also a corporate safety manager for Tyson Mining here in Regina. So we had that podcast, and we've done a couple with Dave talking about safety and talking about youth and trades. It was amazing. And then I also had done another one with Josh Wood, and he's out of West Shore Home, out of Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. And we also talked twice actually about the same thing, about youth and trades. So I think we should just jump all over this bandwagon, and so as people go back in the past and listen to old ones, and then Bob, right, you're going to be like the precipice, like you're going to be like the most credible guy on the planet when it comes to speaking about this subject.
Interesting. Interesting. I don't know about credible, but I'll be the guy. Let's just say that. Yeah.
All right. So before we jump in, can you just maybe give my listeners a little bit of information about Main Road Group, and what the company does, who you serve, and then
Yeah.
a little bit of your role, sort of a bit of a background in that piece.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the Main Road Group is a road maintenance company. We've got around 19 different companies that we have underneath our banner. We've got everything from electrical contracting to civil contracting to traffic control companies, and then quite a plethora of road maintenance companies throughout BC and Alberta. Yeah. So we take care of the roads. We do all the maintenance of the roads, and a lot of our businesses sort of complement each other. So when we have our electrical companies, a lot of them are road maintenance electrical companies. So we work very synergistically together.
And what do you think that makes Main Road so great? I mean, I've been working with your organization for the past, I bet you it's going to be 3 or 4 years for sure. So, Peter, the CEO, and Anthony have both become very close friends of mine. And there's something that's very interesting about Main Road
Mm.
that makes it really is exceptional. I'm not just saying that. There's this real cultural piece of the company. There's a quality that's there, and there's also I noticed like a real family type operation that and a lot of caring that goes into the organization. So, why do you think what makes Main Road exceptional?
Well, that's a big and very broad question, but it's probably one of our biggest perks, I would say, or situations within Main Road is our employee ownership. So being able to have everyone from boots on the ground all the way up to the president to be able to invest into the company and have ownership of the company and see the success across the board, that really does create that kind of that family atmosphere, because it not only are you now employees, but you're now all consumed by your retirement and where you're going. This company has set up quite a few families to live well. By profit sharing. In a way, in a way informed. Through our share purchasing. So that's really one of the things that I'd say that really drives that kind of that family point of view. Um, I'd say that the group is very intimate as well. Our whole executive group is very open to conversations. We have different internal training programs, like our high potential training program, where brand new managers and the executive team meet every quarter, and they just discuss issues and opportunities. And it's an amazing little group to be able to sort of have that opportunity, right? To be able to speak to the president and sort of share your feelings about how we're approaching things. There's a lot of times where they come out of those meetings, and different directors and so on are like, we need to action that. That was a great idea, or a great path. So we get a lot of feedback there, and it's pretty amazing that way.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So someone in the organization says, comes up with an idea, that the leadership team takes to heart and says, you know what, that was great, and we can take action on it. So then people in the organization feel like they belong to something much bigger than themselves. That's kind of what I heard you say.
Yeah, and your voice matters.
Mhm.
A lot of companies ask for feedback, but never provide communication back about what happened from that feedback.
That
You
is
know,
so
it,
true.
and it's a massive flaw in the environment. And I hate to say it, but I feel health and safety staff are
Mhm.
the people that should be the ones helping with that communication. So someone says, my truck isn't this, I don't have this or don't that. Okay, well, we need some reasons why, at least to acknowledge that they brought their concern forward. Thank you
Mhm.
very much for that concern, type thing. We won't be able to get new vehicles right now because it's not allocated in our budget until next year or a year after. A lot of people are like, "Oh, cool, you actually listened to me, and I am getting a truck, just not today." You know?
But yeah, there's three simple things about managing people, and three simple things that people want, right? Do you hear me? Do you see me? And does what I say matter?
Yeah, yeah,
Three
yes.
very simple things.
Whew. It's I like to add one more to that. Do you even know what I'm doing here? Because that happens a lot, right? You get very disconnected from the field.
Right.
A frustration of my senior leader, maybe or not, but I tend to always go right directly to the safety advisor I'm working with, and go right to the field and say, okay, this is the plan. What's your initial feelings? And I want the negative ones first.
Mm.
What is it? Oh, remote locations, people, demographic of what we're dealing with, and then we can work through some of those hiccups, and I can bring it forward and say, okay, a few hiccups we've noticed is this, is that. Yeah.
Fantastic. One last question before I move on, Bob, is, if you look at your tenure with Main Road, What is it about your job or your role that gets you up in the morning, that gets you excited?
Oh, it's hard to not be, it's everything. It's my I always say this. Bob will laugh, right? So I'm a Bob. My boss is a Bob. It's been awesome because
I know, Bob.
yeah, we just blame each other whenever there's something going wrong, right? But he's the most challenging boss that I've ever worked with. But he's also the largest rewarding boss that I've ever worked with.
Mm,
He gives me a lot of opportunity to provide my own feedback, my own style, and my own opinions to these things because I feel he's one of those guys that really realized as a leader, you're nothing without your team.
mm,
And if you don't leverage your team, you're not going to go anywhere. It's going to you're going to be on your own island, and you won't have people behind you backing up what you're saying and what you're promoting. Let's just say, So other than that, my role is really dynamic. I get to take care of, I think it's about 10 or 11 companies right now, and several sets of safety people, and I love watching the growth, right? Like we've hired a bunch of brand new safety coordinators right from the field, and promoted them into different spots. We've got safety professionals in the field. It's so much fun watching new people grow into these roles. Fresh out of school, and you've got all these ideas from the system, of where they go, and then you sort of teach them about, okay, yeah, looks great on paper, but how are we going to make this work here?
mm.
Like, paper works great until it gets soaking wet in the rain. Like there's your first hurdle. Like stuff like that, stuff you would never think about in schooling. So yeah, it's that part is really fun. I really I really try and carry the coach mentality from sports. The coach is there for direction, for support, for guidance, but the coach wouldn't be there without the players,
Right.
right? So, yeah, yeah.
Love it. All right, so here's my plan. I want a little bit. We're gonna get a little bit of backstory on you, Bob,
Okay.
and then I think what we'll do from your backstory, let's run into talk. Let's talk about youth and trades and how important that is, and something that I know that you're very excited about. So, but I'd like my listeners to get to know Bob Lund.
Okay.
So Bob, here's the question: What got you from being a gosling? I mean, this is like where you were hatched, where you started life, to when you left the nest. So when you decided to go out on your own, either you decided to go on your own or that you were just pushed out of the nest and said fly, right? And to where you are today. So if you can just give me kind of a synopsis, Bob, of get people to know you. What's your backstory, Bob?
Well, that's a big one, again, right? So, as I mentioned to you earlier, my path has been amazing. Good times, bad times, fun times, great times. So, um, I graduated from
Whoa, whoa,
Vanier.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Where were you hatched? Where'd you
Oh,
start life, Bob?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was born in Clearwater, and I'm pretty sure it was actually in a single wide hospital trailer because it's a tiny little town inside of BC. My mom and dad had moved up there because my dad was an accountant, recently new accountant, and he was just running across BC to find the spot that he wanted to be at. Right, born and raised. Both parents born and raised in Courtenay, Comox area, and then they, I guess, to use your words, flew the nest to go try and find out wherever they could go. And so they moved from Clearwater and then Port Alberni and Vancouver and stuff like that. But we originally settled in Union Bay, actually, and Union Bay is just south of Courtenay and Comox here, and we lived there until I was in grade 5 or 6.
Hmm.
Loved it. Small little town. I still have ties there. To be technical, my dad and me still play baseball, slow pitch down there
Oh,
to this day.
really?
Yes, yeah. So it's such an awesome little town. We then moved to Royston, which I am now still located in Royston, and we haven't left, from that point forward. So
Give me on the island, give me a where's Royston? What's the next closest sort of center so that
Courtney and
Courtney
Comox,
Comox.
yeah, Courtney Comox. It's basically in the Comox Valley Regional District. All of those cities that well, they're not cities, they're little tiny towns, but they're all there. That's Courtney and Comox, Cumberland, Royston, Union Bay.
Got it. Okay. So there you are. So now you started on the island, you're still on the island.
Yeah,
You're an
yeah,
island. Do you feel like you're on an island? Never
yes,
mind.
a little bit at times. It's this is our jewel for sure. The Vancouver Island. I've as I mentioned before, I graduated in Vanier, jumped over to Alberta because we were doing the Alberta train.
Hmm.
Uh, that's where all the big money was, the cool town.
Hmm.
Go hang out with some cowboys and go see what real work was. So went over there after high school. I did some work in BC, or not BCIT. It was the Alberta Institute over there. I think it's Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. I did that for a little bit, but I actually got sick and came home after to deal with some medical stuff. And then just was like, I really miss home. I'm just going to stay home, right? So stayed home. Had several jobs everywhere from United Furniture Warehouse manager to a mill worker, right? Landed a really good job. Back in the day, all the mills were the cream of the crop jobs,
Hmm.
great pension, good pay, good work, so I had a job up in Elk Falls, and it was starting to decline a little bit. So I got an opportunity to become get an apprenticeship for electrical through Dave Drury.
Oh.
Uh, Jumped all over it. And thank God we did this. And you'll see, I've had several of these little mini steps throughout my life where it was an amazing decision that you wouldn't have even known that you were making until you made it. Right. So I took that job, and not 6 months later, they shut the mill down, you
Oh,
know.
wow.
So now I went from, $25 an hour, pension benefits, RSPs, etc., to like 14 dollars an hour, nothing else, driving your own vehicle and etc., getting to work and back and forth. But man, was that a great opportunity. Residential electrician, um, just a young kid running around, wiring houses and so on. And it was an amazing experience for me, and I completely recommend it for any young person wanting to get into it. Construction is a great way to learn, sort of, most importantly, work ethic. So yeah, um, on the electrical side, I continued through with Dave Drury and a couple other electrical companies. Got my complete ticket, and then joined the group in the oil field. We had a big group of friends that um, moved out to Alberta, and we were working for Studon. It was an electrical and controls company, but mainly for Synovus Energy.
Mm.
And I had one friend that still, to my friend to this day, he was our superintendent, and he drug us all out there. So you got to come out. You got to come out. I will never forget that, because the experience that it gave me was tenfold compared to the residential side of things, just on sheer size.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
during that tenure, I did have a little bit of break in between jobs, and I actually took my NCSO. So that's the National Construction Safety Officer role, because in Alberta it was very strict, like really strict, health and safety wise. Like there was no real ladder work. We weren't allowed knives. And those were like our main tools. So I took my NCSO and I went back out to Alberta for a while, and I did a little bit of health and safety combined with electrical with that company. I had good time with it, but kind of struggled with where we were going, and the style of health and safety that they were kind of running, and then parted ways. Came back into town, applied to Main Road, and I got a job for Raylec Power, um, as a junior estimator for electricians. So I went into the safety role, tried it, and then applied a different way and went in a total different route. So, but once again, it was the ticket that gave me that foot in the door, to be able to trade into that side. So yeah, 12 years ago, I started as a junior estimator for Raylick, progressed into basically a regular estimator. But as you know, with safety, it was growing, growing, growing in BC. And they asked me to take on a little bit more of a safety role in Raylick. At that point, that's where safety really drove into me my full-time job, and haven't looked back since. You know,
And so how long you been in your role presently?
I want to say about 8 years.
Oh, so it's been a pretty good run.
Yeah, yeah, it's been great.
So so looking back, when you were a kid on the island, did you ever think that you would ended up being an electrician and now a corporate safety manager?
Never, never. I, to be honest, I didn't know what I was going to do until I was about 30. So I was floating around, and chasing different dreams, when you're younger, and just enjoying life, had no idea that I was into the trades or anything like that. I wasn't necessarily very mechanical, let's just say. When I grew up, I did a lot of like home stereo wiring and car stereo wiring and stuff like that. But that was for a goal of trying to, attract the other half of society. So and I enjoyed that thing. But you never think about those things as a kid. You're always like, oh, I got time. I got my whole life ahead of me. I could
Mm.
choose that. You know. So yeah, I had no idea that I was ever going to be it. And like I mentioned to you before, I would have probably laughed at you if you said, "Do you know you're going to be this in the future?" I would have said, "No way, no way." Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I mean, if you don't mind me asking the question, just because where you are now, and your dad was an accountant, you said. Was your mom working as well?
Yeah, mom was a real estate agent for a bunch of years. Yeah.
Okay. So with those two, so mom being a real estate agent, dad being an accountant, was there any time that you were sort of advised or even coerced to go down either one of those paths because your parents were?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. My parents were amazing. They were always very open, that I was willing to do whatever I wanted. And they're always willing to put, as long as you're willing to try hard and do hard with those things, that they would be willing to take me wherever I wanted to go. So they really, really supported me. In reality, if I was more aware, I would have became an accountant and took over my dad's practice after a certain amount of years, and life would have been probably a lot more like than what I've done so far, right? But never did, and just kind of move that way.
Hmm. Um, do you think that, as you just said, that you've taken over your dad's practice, your dad's firm, do you, looking back, do you think that you would have um, made it, I would say made it, but really thrived in the world of being an accountant?
Um, I don't know if I would or wouldn't. I think a lot of it is your own personal mentality of how you approach things, because not 10 years ago, if you asked me that same question about health and safety manager, I'd probably say the same answer, you know. But you got to be humble in these positions, and you got to be, gracious and have gratitude towards what you have, what you don't have, having some struggles in life, and some hard times to go through, really molds you into being better, and like, putting that extra foot ahead, staying that extra hour at work, having the ethics and morals to be, you know you know not necessarily worried about counting the minutes. You're more counting your achievements than anything. I think a lot of that is your own personal mentality there. So I think I would have been able to do it. Now, happiness, that's a whole different question.
Oh, let's
Yeah.
Would you mind opening up that can of worms?
Well, happiness is you need to be rewarded with your work, and who you're working for and what you do. Now, being a single child, like a single child, no
Mhm.
brothers, no sisters. I was always very social, right? And being social and charismatic and trying to be, friends with a lot of people, it amazingly helped me a lot with uh, being a manager in health and safety, right? Health and safety is sales. Health and safety is trying to convince someone to do something that they don't want to do because it's more work. Even though there is like a strong rule of prevention behind it.
Mhm.
And the changing of the tides. It's ever growing, ever changing. That's the most common concern we get from any manager or worker in the field is, oh my God, are you guys ever going to stand still? You know, and it's like, well, no, we can't. Even the regulation changes. As we grow and grow. Yeah,
Yeah, the only thing that's going to stay the same is change.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So so thank you for that. Let's jump into the youth and trades piece for this next aspect of the podcast. Um, when I mentioned it to you earlier before we hopped on here, I said, in the intro, it's like your eyes got big, your voice changed, and you got really excited. What lights you up, first of all, about, getting youth into the trades? And maybe you can share with some of your personal story for yourself.
No, yeah, yeah. I'd love to get into this subject. It is very passionate of mine. Growing up in the '90s and '80s and so on, you had two paths by the educational system: be a doctor, go to university. Everything else doesn't matter. And they pushed you. They pushed you hard for those things. And a lot of kids don't get that chance, don't have that opportunity. Whether it's the ability, whether it's the academics, whether it's the drive. Half of these kids at 21, they're still just kids.
Hmm.
They're still figuring things out. So to ask them to make a career of what they're going to be passionate about, that's ridiculous. They don't even know what way they want to do their hair that morning. So like it was crazy to me. But I really, and I'm very happy the way that the world's going is that they're really seeing that this is an opportunity. Because being an electrician opened up so many doors that I had no idea that you could go to. You could stay a regular general residential electrician and have a fabulous, well taken care of life. You're going to be in great shape. You're going to be up to date on what's happening in your town, and you can go all the way to like what I got to, and they go into the office and get into an estimating role because you have the technical know-how to read plans and scale off those plans and think about the steps that you need to make those plans and the costs associated. And then in the health and safety role, um, I tell you what a door opener with workers when I say, oh, like, oh, I see you're pulling feeders today. You're hooking up a panel, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, how come you know that lingo? They're like, oh, I'm a Sparky too. I
Much
was like,
Berkey.
I'm a part of Running Shoe Electric, so trust me, I've done everything that you could have possibly done. And they all laugh. They're like, "Oh my God, that's awesome!" It's so cool to see you in this type of a role, so we can get some context here to how things are written and how they're built. A lot of health and safety is very strict. Um, doesn't quite align with the work, and you'll get that common complaint. You know, well, yeah, it's great to have steps 1 through 7, but I only do 2 and 5. Well, why don't we change that? Let's make that work. Let's why is it that way? Yeah.
Hmm. If you were to look back to when you were not even 14, 15, 16, and you probably had no idea what you wanted to do with your life at that time. Like you don't know how you're gonna do your hair that day, as you said. But if knowing what you know now with the trades, with safety, your journey, what advice would you have given yourself when you were younger? when it came to trades?
If I had any piece of advice, I'd be saying get into construction right away as soon as you can. See what you like there. There's such a big spread. From a framing carpenter to an electrician to a plumber to a gas fitter. Get into that side of things. And see what your passion is. Mechanics. Red Seal chefs. There's so many different opportunities that you can get some of that. And I would say pre-apprenticeship programs. If you're not going to necessarily go to college or university right away, jump on that train of a pre-apprenticeship program. Get that 1 year under your belt, and then take that year off afterwards. Or whichever, because it at least, and this is how I've always sort of carried it. My personal by the hour rate, you know, grows, right? So if you can get past that pre-apprenticeship, you're almost guaranteed you're not going to make minimum wage anymore
Hmm.
forever. You'll be able to go into some role and carry a certain dollar per hour. So if you can create that wealth within yourself to grow and be able to say, no matter what, I'm never going to make less than $25 an hour. It just helps bring that everything else into society. When you have a family and you have kids and so on, you're not struggling to meet ends meet, and you get stuck in that swirl, of struggling, because this day and age things are so unachievable and unattainable when it comes to housing and future. You need any leg up you can get out there.
Hmm. Well, one of the things that I find interesting, something that I talk about is, when if your toilet plugs, no one from Harvard is going to come fix it for you. Um, and the second thing is that in the time that we're in now with AI, and AI is all the talk, it's all the rage, and everybody's leaning into it. But AI will never put electricity in your house. AI will never plumb your house. AI will never frame your house. AI will never roof your house.
Right.
Um, and as kids are coming up, and there now before, I think there was a big push, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become an accountant, become an engineer was, and then the trades were something that, well, if you couldn't do this, the fall off was to go into trades, which is a narrative that I'd like to change. But now
Mhm.
we're seeing a shift into AI where it's so look at technology, which, there's a lot of attraction to that piece. But again, that though, that AI will never frame your house or put electricity into your house or plumb your house or any of those kind of things. What are your thoughts on that?
The AI is a scary thing, but I'm actually very optimistic for the future. I feel that it's just going to create other avenues for people to go in different directions. I do also agree with you that it's not going to plumb your house, but it may pull all the main trunks. It may have, there may be some sort of machine that let's just say ties in a residential plug really quickly for you, type thing. So it may augment how you're doing it and
Hmm.
and where you're going to it, and so on. But with anything in life, to stay cutting edge, you need to be cutting edge, and you need to really absorb that and try and learn to harness that power, right, and get in there. So uh, electricians, cutting edge electricians, they're going to have to start using AIs for bidding, for estimating,
Hmm.
designing of the thing, and maybe hopefully find some conflicts that you wouldn't see over a piece of paper, or whichever. I'm very optimistic towards the future of that, because I feel that it's going to create a whole different area that we as humans don't even know exists yet.
Hmm.
Uh, that's where we'll be managing the human emotion, managing stress, working better with mental health and students and schools and where we go to and etc. All those things I think will be. I don't think a computer can replace, right? A computer can't replace, support, like love,
Hmm.
those feelings.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep. True.
yeah.
Interesting. And I was just, as you were talking, I was just thinking about, even from electrical. So, when you started off, or when I would have, understand, I mean, you're pulling 14.2 or 14.3 wire, and you're running circuits, and it's pretty straightforward as a rule. And now with technology, I mean, you think of some of these people doing electrical where you're having to do electrical for computer systems and all the tech that's coming into whether residential or commercial.
Mhm.
It's completely next level of electrical that the demand for these people that they have to be able to do.
Absolutely. And even the schooling, I would assume, is changing at the same time as well. But completely agree with you. When it comes to electrical, the best thing I was taught was just don't overthink the simple. Just get the wiring there, and then we can figure most of it out afterwards, type thing.
Right.
But I completely agree with you. It can get very complex, and very detailed. Let's just say.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is pretty linear for sure. Yeah.
But I just think that, as we're talking, saying about, a doctor or a lawyer, or, like let's just say electrician, is that, the complexity of electrical is just expanding so much that, you can be an absolute, just like in medicine, you could be a specialist who, let's say, is a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon or, but same thing in electrical is that you can become a specialist in high level electronics, still within that same field.
Yeah,
And so I think
absolutely.
that they play at the same level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you on that side of things. The 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 decision making process of each side is just different. You
Hmm.
know, a lot of it, in different areas, like when it comes to some of those higher end, like lawyers and doctors, is the basis of opinion of your own natural knowledge.
Hmm.
Where I think on the electrical side, it's pretty straightforward. There's a positive, there's a negative, there's a black, there's a neutral. You sort of have these basic skill sets to get to that common end goal,
Hmm.
of where you're going there. So and as you grow as an electrician, that the level of complexity can get way more, right? So wiring a regular family home, a lot of electricians be like, it's pretty simple,
Hmm.
until you get into the mix and you get into that panel and someone mislabeled something, you got to start tracing stuff. And then you go up to a big, huge PLC panel inside of the oil field, and there's 4,000 wires entering it. And if you pull the wrong wire, it's going to set the alarm off. There's a whole level of, yeah, insecurity, I guess you could say, in a way. Yeah.
But just on that, thinking that how much at that point, how much of an expert do you have to be to understand it?
Expert, pardon me. So, an expert, I don't know about being an expert. I think you just need to be willing to succeed and fail here and there to become an expert. Every electrician knows that when your wiring doesn't work, because that it'll blow right in your
Right.
face. So real easy way to become an expert is trying this pop. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, let's try this differently. Okay, it's working. Let's go through that. Then you learn from that. You got to make those mistakes, just like in life. You need to make those mistakes to be better. To have that reassurance in your brain. Okay, now I know how to wire that. Now I know how to wire the three-way switching, or the whatever complex items you need to be. Yeah,
Right. So succeed by failing.
100%. 100%. That's life in general. Yeah.
Life in general. So, what advice, Bob, from your experience and even in the situation that you're now, and your background, what advice would you give some youth? And I'm gonna go into that space of, 14, 15, 16 years old, the ones that don't really know, kind of, how they're going to do their hair that day. What advice would you give them to attract them into the trades? And one of the things that, from this conversation, and something that I think about a lot of, is when did we decide, right, that a scalpel was more important than a utility knife? Right?
Mhm.
When did we decide that a gavel was more important than a hammer?
Mhm.
And so, and that pretense, what advice would you give kids that either may not know or may have a little bit of a glimmer of saying, "Hey, I think there's something here." how would you advise them to say, you know what, this is a great path to go down?
Yeah, I have 14-year-old right now. So,
Oh,
14-year-old boy and then 13-year-old boy. So, this is a tricky one, because as a parent, you want your child to stay a child, and when you talk to your 14-year-old about their career, they kind of roll their eyes at you.
yeah.
So, dad, what do you want, type thing, and sometimes I hesitate. I even question, are we thinking about this too early in their development stages,
Mm,
versus keeping them busy, and keeping them excited and passionate, learn about your passions and where you want to go. I always say this with my wife about, I want to build a work ethic, but I also don't want them to go to work while they're 14. Like, I want them to build a work ethic, but so my goals are conflicting. So I could just imagine them as a kid, hearing all these things in school and what the schools and the system feels a priority these days
hmm
versus what they feel a priority is these days is, it's a challenge. I would say for the ones that are very clear, because there are some kids out there that are very clear that they want a passion, something to dive into, that, being able to use your hands will never go away from you. It's like riding a bike, being able to, there's nothing more rewarding to be able to unplug your own toilet, you know, or replace the whole toilet, or, replace some, redo your kitchen and realize that you don't have to spend $2,000 to bring a plumber in to hook up two pipes, stuff like that. That is incredibly rewarding. So using your hands, um, building things, being able to look back at something, and and be like, I built that. That's probably one of the biggest things I miss in this role, is being able to stand back and look at a wall of pipe or a wall of wires that I created, that's nice and neat and tidy, and you could see that I cared about that product. That was probably the biggest, hardest transition for me,
Mm.
to do. Is to go away from that instantaneous reward.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Um, there's two things. I mean, I was going to tell you the why of why we're doing what we're doing to get youth in trades, and it's to provide youth every opportunity to leave their fingerprints on the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's our why. They get to leave their fingerprints on it, right? And
Yeah.
they'll always be there, right? So they got to build it. They got to see it. They got
They
to
got to.
be a part of it. And one of the things that I've discovered, so my son's a welder. He's in Alberta. He's a welder. He's got his own company. But one of the things that I discovered as a dad, and plus having conversations with him and people that he knows, I find the youth that are really attracted to the trades. They like fixing and building and doing all those things, but the education system doesn't really support it. So my line is that how many kids in school get to actually demonstrate their knowledge?
Mm.
And they can't. It's all conceptual. So I look back when I was in school. I mean, it was motor mech, it was machining, it was construction, it was welding, it was electrical. That's where all my marks came from. Why? Because I could actually physically see and do what I needed to do. It was practical math, it was practical English, it was practical science. Those things made sense to me. Anything conceptual didn't make sense to me, and that's mostly what the education system is. So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bash it. I'm just trying to share this thought. But one of the things that I found, and I'll see if you can relate to this at all, Bob, is that I call those kids like the lost souls. And I don't care if they're male, I don't care if they're female, I don't care if they're Aboriginal, I don't care. They're human beings, and they're the lost souls because they live in a world where they can't really show what they know, and they don't know where they belong because they don't belong with the academics. They're not given a path to do trades or hands-on work, so they don't know where they fit. And I think that's part of the problem is they just don't know. And so
Yeah.
then they have no direction. And that's one of the problems, that's what I'm saying about early 12, 13, 14, of help give them some direction and give them something that they can, that they can hitch their wagon to the star. What are your thoughts on that?
Love it. Love it. Like we're so underfunded and underutilized in this side of the world. Everyone knows that we're going across seas to bring in electricians, or bringing in other countries' workforce. Why aren't we investing in our own youth here? We're gonna have a student come in here to Main Road, North Island, and we're gonna, they come in once a work experience type thing, right? But there's one class, that's it, one class for it, and you're thinking like, okay, we know that there's this big glut of trades that we need. Why hasn't the system come up behind us and say, let's hire some retiring electricians, whichever, to help with these pre-apprenticeship programs,
Mhm.
and let's take some of the buildings and say, like, let's go out on a job site, with these kids, with some of these students and so on. Let's learn general health and safety items, stuff, just general ladder use, how to use different power tools safely. Not only is it going to create a little bit of confidence and to be able to somewhat do those things, but it'll help support that educational system and that growth side of things. That's very important for me, that we're going in these directions. But yeah.
What's Main Road doing in this capacity to, every once in a while I'll see, posts where they've got some pictures of somebody's graduated from a program, whatever, which is fantastic. They do that. But what's Main Road doing in order to try to help solve this problem?
Oh, that's well, we're very open. One of my personal prerequisites to get hired is, do you want the job? And that drive, do you want to be here? But yeah, we support as much as practicable. Learning. I forget what they're called, but the students, from schools to come in, and we bring on first year apprentices, second year apprentices, put them through school. We've got everything from electricians to mechanics to carpenters on our bridge crews, bridgemen. So we support a lot of the trades, right?
Yeah, and I know that the BC Road Builders, they had built a simulator
Mm,
for that,
yeah.
for driving, like driving a snowplow or driving a picker, like, and then they take that to the schools, which I thought was pretty incredible, that the kids actually get to experience it.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. I mean, we're so lucky in where we live, and we spend so much money on so many ridiculous things in our government. Let's just say, but I would love for us to maybe get down to the point where we're actually looking at, um, different large city centers, having a different style of school system where they actually have forklifts, they have, skid steers, they have backhoes, they have these things, and instead of using a simulator, they actually go out and dig a hole,
Mm.
do something, maybe if you get to the point where it's savvy enough that they can actually go do some things for the elderly or the homeless or something towards that, like building different things, supporting, like start creating the kind of the community point of view from these these young people growing up. The one thing that you don't ever really think about as a tradesman, especially when it comes to electricians, or sorry, residential, is you're going into someone's personal space to
Mm.
make it better. And the rewarding aspect from that, after you've done a good job and that person is just tickled pink from that, being like, oh, I've been waiting 7 months to put that fan up, you have no idea how hot it is. And there's a huge reward to that side of it too, and it's very intimate. It's almost like volunteering in a way, except you're getting paid for it.
Mm. Um, so what I just heard you say, that the impact that's created is is more than the trade itself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So you
absolutely.
So through a skill that you get to learn and develop and get paid for, you positively impact other people's lives.
Oh, amazingly so. Amazingly so. In between going out to Alberta, I ran a little bit of a service call van out of just on my own, right? And I worked with a property management company. So every single house I went into was a renter's house,
Mhm.
and everyone, everywhere from completely disabled into a wheelchair to like 97 years old, and I would go into their house and I would fix things for them. But a lot of times they're lonely, or they have something broken and they're shy to ask or whichever. And if you can do that for them, it makes you just feel so rewarded from doing that side of things.
So if you have your whether it's yourself or have a youth coming into the trades, that they learn a skill and an expertise to positively impact other people's lives.
Hmm.
How is
And
that
more.
and how is that any different than a doctor?
It isn't. That's why we need to keep it that way. It's not any different, you know. I will say this, as a person that grew up in carpentry class, mechanics, metal shop, and so I know more millionaires from my friends group than I do the professional friends groups, and that came from trades. It came from trades. It came from dirty work. It came from someone seeing something that other people won't do, and they can benefit from it massively. Some people are just born to be entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
and they may not know how to do long division, you know, but they're still a millionaire, right? So just saying it's the mentality of like education is all. Yes, it can be, but maybe we need to be a bit more broader of that topic, more hands-on education, skills. Like skills are education too,
Hmm.
like um, the money that you can make as an electrician, as a carpenter, going remote, going where AI is never going to go. AI is never going to go to the side of a mountain, or something like that to build a remote cabin, where there is no power, there is no nothing there, right? That's where we get involved. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. As my son's become a welder, so he got, and it was really back in school. It was really a welding, and then and working with a part of a program in Regina where they partnered with Habitat for Humanity to build a house as a school. But that to me was the 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 cincher for him. But now, I mean, he's 21 years old. He's about to be 22. He's got his own company. He's got his own truck. He's got his own welding rig. And I'm just going to say that financially, he's probably way better off than well, he's way better off than any other 21-year-old that he went to school with.
Oh yeah, that's
And
me.
and absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
Right. He loves his job at 21 and is financially rewarded very well. You know, and I can see, as the trades, and it's something that we're working on, something we're thinking about is just like yourself, like the trades it's hard work. It's physical work. It's you've got a strong work ethic. Sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do. Sometimes you got to work outside of hours you don't want to work. But there's a lot of self-satisfaction that comes with it. But with that whole piece of having to work hard is that you reap your own benefits of the work that you do. And what's funny is that as time goes on, because it's such hard work, is I don't know if you could do that work till you're 50, till you're 60, because it's so demanding physically. But then there's the next opportunity to come, just like you're in, is like now you get to lead the next generation of youth coming in and teaching them about electrical, teaching them about safety, teaching those things. So you can take, and it's a knowledge transfer to the next generation, and I think that's a pretty incredible gift.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely. a very interesting path. I love the opportunities that I've been given from my ticket. I would never say that I was a master electrician, or anything like that, because I didn't have enough time in there. I would have been, if I would still have continued through that path, let's just say. But yeah, having the ability just to, like you mentioned, to be versatile, and be able to go into different areas, and be able to support your future. Completely agree with you.
Yeah. So, so last thought, looking towards your future now, and if you were to be, whereas I guess you say not your future, but where you've come to this point, if you were going to a school, and have a classroom of kids that are 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, when it comes to what you've learned, what would you tell them?
Try, have fun, play around. I hate to say it, but smash nails into a board. Cut things. Have fun with things. Build that fence with your dad.
Mm,
All sorts of stuff. Learn that side of life, because that will make you so versatile across the board. You know, um, go through with your passions. We need doctors, we need lawyers. So if that's your passion, roll with it. But we also need, more so, we need the electricians. We need the guys that are going working with the metal, to make those cool things, and to be part of that. More than anything, just follow your passions, and don't be afraid when that passion simmers and it goes into another passion. You
mm,
know, like, if I have a goal for my kids, it will be to have some sort of a basis training of their life after school. Whether that's a pre-apprenticeship of a trade, or something. That's what I'm going to be trying for, right? Just so they have something that they can fall back on, because life is fast and frequent, and you always need to have a little bit of a fallback plan on for yourself.
fair
Um,
enough.
yeah, I wouldn't say to the kids, just be kids. Don't worry about stuff until later. I definitely would want them to get into that, because there are lots of, like, more, you know, stronger kids out there that are trying to decide that path. And I've met guys in the oil field that are 24 years old and a full journeyman, and it's like, oh, you're so much farther ahead than I was at 24.
Mm.
You know,
My son, at 21, is a journeyman, red seal, and his B pressure,
yeah,
all by 21.
that's amazing. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's possible, right? Because I mean, he did it. If you were to give Main Road, because you said that Main Road's very open, and I mean, I know all the executive personally, and they're very open because you're an employee-based company. If you were to give Main Road a piece of advice to this topic of getting youth into trades, what advice would you give the company?
I would say, when wh- when reasonable, we should really look at, bringing on more youth in trades, bringing on more, um, green, very green people, promoting within for people that want to have the, like, some of our crews, like, if there is someone that wants to get into the trade, that we support that side of things, when reasonable, you know. Yeah, yeah, being a part of that, supporting all these leadership programs and so on that come from the school systems. Um, take on two instead of one, maybe.
Mhm.
If possible. You have to be careful, because sometimes there's only so much work, for that, and you
Sure.
don't want them to just twiddle their thumbs,
Yeah,
and then get a bad taste from it too, as well.
sure.
So, yeah, yeah, and you want it to be rewarding, right?
Yeah,
I've done work experience before where, like, you brought on as a mechanic and you just wash 20 trucks every day. That's
yeah,
not fair. Like, you want to actually get into the nuts and bolts of things. Let's just say. So
100%.
that's
Beautiful.
not Main Road, but I've seen it before. right?
Yeah, no, that's a whole other topic. I think we should probably have another podcast around, but diving deeper in this subject, Bob, because there's a lot of pieces around that I would love to talk to you about more,
Mhm.
in that regard. But we've
Okay.
only got so much time. So on that note, Bob, I want to thank you for your time today. I really want to thank you for for your genius, really. Um, and getting to know you over time and all the work that you're doing for Main Road. I love your passion around this, and I said I'd like to keep this conversation going. Now, if anybody wants to try to find you, Bob, and have conversations with you, whether it's going to be about Main Road, whether it's going to be about safety, whether it's going to be about youth and trades, or just find out that you're just a great guy, where, Bob, can they go to find you?
So like I'm on LinkedIn. So they're more than welcome to look up on LinkedIn. I'm sometimes formerly known as Robert Lund. I don't, but mainly I go by Bob. Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn there, and then yeah, I'm through Instagram and a few other things. But more than anything, I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best scenario type thing. And then they're more than welcome to reach out through the Main Road websites too as well.
Okay, I'll get that in the show notes so that they can have that as well. So if somebody wants to talk to you, they can have that in the conversation with the Bob Lund.
Yeah, right. That'd be great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you having me on today. It's fun doing these things. Um, you know, Sometimes I think conversation can be a little clunky when you don't necessarily know the questions, but I'm glad we went this way. Because it is a big passion of mine. And I know I have a lot of friends that have young boys, young girls that aren't academically perfect,
Mhm.
that want to go in this direction and are sort of frustrated with the lack of support that we do have for uh, kids in trades.
Well, then let's lead the way, shall we, Bob?
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. All right, there you have it, folks. We had a great time with Bob Lund, all the way from Vancouver Island, working for Main Road, Mr. Safety Guy. And this is Warren Berry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond because we're better together. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you very much.